start the meeting by taking roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien. Present. Alderman Timmons. Alderman Ryan. Here. Alderman Thibodeau. Here. Alderman Govea.
I am here via Zoom. I am in Bob, my brother's sister-in-law's house, and I'm in the room alone.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemmons. Alderman Senate.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Wilshire.
I am here.
11 present, 4 absent.
Thank you. Also joining us this evening is Mayor Jim Donchis and Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Communication.
Communication has been received from President Laurie Wilshire, Board of Aldermen, regarding calling a special Board of Aldermen meeting on November 26, 2024 at 7 p.m. relative to setting the tax rate.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file. Tonight, we're having a presentation on the tax rate setting, and I would like to recognize our treasurer tax collector, Don Enright. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, President Wilshire, for taking the time to allow me to be able to present tax rate setting, the state statutes, and an understanding for the citizens and the aldermen of how the tax rate is actually set.
If you'd like to take a seat, I think Alderman Gouveia is not going to be here in person this evening. I think he's on Zoom. So
Okay.
if you'd like to sit in his seat,
Thank
you're
you very
welcome to
much.
do so.
As stated, my name is Dawn Enright. I am the tax collector treasurer for the city of Nashua. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending this evening's session. I take great pleasure in helping educate all on municipal finance, tax, assessing. I love to share my knowledge, so I am delighted to be here to be able to help everybody understand a little bit better. I also would like to thank Alderman Thibodeau for reaching out to me and asking me to share my knowledge with everybody. Thank you very much. So, tax rate setting. Of course, it's on everybody's mind right about now. So, let's get started. So the Department of Revenue Administration sets all tax rates. It is written in the laws under RSA 21J315. The Commissioner, as it states, under 35I, the Commissioner shall compute all tax rates. The basic process of calculating your tax rates. The DRA gathers local financial data to calculate each municipality's tax rate. All cities and towns have the following components to their tax rate. It is amazing when you talk to citizens and you ask them, what are the components of your tax rate? Quite often, they don't understand it. I have stumped several people that I've interviewed that first thing I ask them is, do you own property in the state of New Hampshire? And they answer yes. And I say, do you know the components of your tax bill? And they say, no, they do not. So the components are local municipal tax rate, which is your city or town portion. You have your county. The county has a budget, and each municipality within the county have to pay a portion of the county's budget. You have your local tax, your school local tax rate. Nashua has a dependent school district, but the rate that you pay your taxes is split out for the school portion. Then there is a statewide education tax. Setting the tax rate by the commissioner. The DRA commissioner, Lindsay Stepp, examines all local financial reports for conformity with state statutes, looking for accurately estimating of revenues and for any calculation errors. She has a wonderful staff that each municipality works with to ensure that all of these documents are in order. What are these documents? It starts with the adopted budget, which is filed under the MS 636 or the MS 737. Then you have financial reporting from the prior year. You have the current year budgeted appropriations, current year property assessments as of April 1st, because the tax year runs from April 1st to March 31st for all municipalities. Then you have your current year budgeted revenues on your MS 434. And the prior year school financials are reported on the MS 25. The MS 25 actually comes from the Department of Education through the MS, from the DOE 25, I'm sorry. So they work in conjunction. It is actually reviewed by the Department of Education, then it is forwarded on to the Department of Revenue Administration. From there, you have a surplus amount that is added to the revenues to offset the amount to be raised by taxation. The last part that you have is the amount, is your overlay, and it's the amount that is used to offset abatements that are granted throughout the year. So if there is an adjustment to somebody's property taxes due to an oversight or an error or an assessment problem, there is overlay that is put aside. It's an amount of money that's put aside to accommodate those corrections. So what can change your tax rate? Year over year, increases and decreases in the budget. So if you increase the budget, that is going to affect your tax rate. Changes in credits and exemptions. If the veterans' credits go up, the amount that you are going to collect from those properties is going to be less, and it has to be compensated by other properties. Elderly exemptions. If you raise the elderly exemption limit and more people qualify, those taxes will have to be, that amount of your appropriation will have to be collected from the other taxpayers. Change in property value can change your tax rate. So your approved budget. So that is all the appropriations that you approve right here in these chambers to be expended in the next budget year. When you subtract the estimated revenues to be collected, that's how you get to the amount to be raised through municipal taxation. assessed valuation. I don't have much information on this slide, only because assessments, we could take 3 nights talking about how the assessments are calculated and how the DRA regulates them. But all of the duties of the Commissioner of the DRA in relation to property values, assessing must conform with all of the laws that govern assessments. And the RSAs are quite lengthy. So the simple formula, how do we calculate a tax rate? We take our budget, which is our appropriations less our revenues, and divide it by the assessed value. And that's how we get our tax rate. So let's go through some scenarios just to kind of help send home how your tax rate can change, or how your tax liability can change, because that's what everyone really is concerned about, is their tax liability year over year. So the first scenario, if your assessment goes up 15%, but the budget doesn't change at all, revenues and appropriations don't change, what is the result? If you look at the equation that is up there, $350 million times 1.05 gives us the $367,500,000 for appropriations. So our appropriations went from $350 million to the 367.5. Our appropriations increased. We subtract the revenues of 100 million, and we divide it by the property valuation of 16 million. So the property valuation did not change. The rate is 16.72. This is all hypothetical. Hypothetically, the prior year was 15.63. So that's how your rate increased from 15.63 to 16.72. Property valued at $300,000 would have an annual tax liability of $5,015.63, which is an increase from the prior year of $4,687.50. Does anyone have any questions so far with the concept? Okay. Scenario 2. Total revenues in the budget increase and no change in the budget appropriations and property assessments. So the revenues increase by 5%. So the appropriations stay the same. You subtract 105 million from the 150, divide it by the 16 million, and your tax rate goes from 15.63 down to 15.31. Or your tax liability decreases from 4,593 to 4,000, I'm sorry, from 4,687 to 4,593. It doesn't appear to have my last scenario, but you have it in your handouts that were sent to you. Total revenues in the budget increase and no change in appropriations or the property assessments. So in that scenario, your tax rate will go down, and then the individual tax liability will decrease, because your budget increased and there was no change in the appropriations or the property assessments. So those are your basic changes that can affect your tax rate. I don't know what happened to my last pages. I apologize. I had my contact information. Does anyone have any questions?
Alderman Clee.
Thank you, Madam President. Back to sorry. Back to the basic process that you had, when you were talking about the local municipal tax rate, the county tax rate, the local school rate, and when you went down to the, it's in the school rate, you referred to the school rate, and you referred to Nashua as being a dependent school. I've heard the term before, being up in the State House, and you referred to the statewide education tax rate, and you have uniform swept. Could you just kind of explain that and refer to, if you can?
Yes.
Talk to the dependent school. I know the difference between Nashua and Manchester. I don't think Manchester is a dependent school.
No, it is not.
Right, so I know, I often hear people say, well, Manchester did it differently, and Manchester doesn't have to do this. So if you could kind of explain that a little bit, and if you could kind of talk to the statewide education tax rate and the swept, and having been up in the State House, I know we often hear about the swept and so on. So if you could explain that a little bit.
Certainly, I'd be delighted to. Thank you. So the dependent school district, what that means is Nashua School District is a department of the city, and their budget operates in the same manner as all other departments, and their financials are handled the same manner. In terms of a independent school district, it's when the school district is an SAU, and all of their financials are separate from the municipality. Now, not all, but most SAUs have multiple communities that go to those school systems, and each of the municipalities pay their share to the school district in which is supported by them. So their financial systems of an independent school district, they have their own financial system, they have their own treasurer, they do all of their own financing, they do their own bonding. It is completely separate from the municipalities. Any questions on that portion?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yeah, thank you. Just for a clarification, what we're talking about, the school department is autonomous. Basically, we give them X amount of dollars, what they figure for would be their annual budget, and if we deem that as appropriate, and then they basically spend the money accordingly. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. They do have bottom line, but their financial tracking and the rules that they follow on their financial reporting, it follows the same as the city. And the city treasurer does all of the bonding for the dependent school district.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out to explain this.
Thank you.
On slide 5, you listed a number of documents that we have to send to the state. Are those documents public? I think I've seen the MS1 on our website, I thought. But are we able to look for those on our website?
I would have to double check. It probably is not labeled as an MS document. It's probably just labeled as the year-end financial systems, the audited financial systems, the budget, the approved budget, or the assessed values. I would have to double check if we have that on the website, but I would assume we do.
Okay.
I apologize, I don't have
That's all
the
right.
direct answer on that.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, I want to thank you again for being here this evening and enlightening us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Could I possibly answer Alderman Clee's second half of that question?
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
The question was
About the
if I
swept,
could explain the state portion of the tax rate, or the swept portion of the tax rate. The state sets, they want to make sure that all of the schools throughout the state get appropriate funding, so they collect a portion of the school tax rate in order to equalize the education throughout the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Moran.
So, would that mean we also help subsidize other communities? Because we
Your
have a
microphone.
larger, I'm sorry. Does that also mean that we help subsidize other communities because we have a larger tax base and population that other communities don't have access to?
I would tend to think that that could be the case, but I would have to study the actual distribution. But I believe that's the concept behind having it be collected at the state level, so that they can make sure that all communities are funded appropriately. Yes.
Thank you.
I can answer.
Alderman, Attorney Bolton can respond to that.
We don't subsidize any other community because of SWEPT. But when you think of other things, like rooms and meals tax, the portion that is raised here in Nashua does not come back in total to Nashua. Mostly it gets distributed to the state and whatever the state wants to do with it, including its education subsidies to all communities. Lottery, the same thing. Disproportionately, we are what has been referred to as a donor community on things like the gas tax, rooms and meals tax, lottery proceeds, charitable gaming proceeds. But the SWEPT, no, that's a uniform rate across the state, and we keep all that's collected in Nashua.
Alderman Moran.
Thank you so much for that, Attorney Bolton. I do appreciate that, and I'm sure every small town who can't afford their services are so ready to say thank you to the city of Nashua.
Anyone else?
Kidding me?
I think we're done. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your presentation this evening.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, City Treasurer's Office, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Okay, we're 6 minutes before our next meeting. Oh,
We need to adjourn.
we do. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I know you did not mean to cut out my big moment here.
I did not mean to do that.
But, Madam President, if I may, I would like to make the motion that the November 25th, 2024 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen so be adjourned.
Motion is to adjourn.
By roll
Oh, by roll call.
Roll call? Okay, roll call, Madam
Would
President?
the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Moran.
Yes.
Alderman Thibodeau.
Yes.
Alderman Govea.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Sullivan.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Senate.
Yes.
Alderman Jettie.
Yes.
Alderman Tebow.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes,
13 yeas, 0 nays.
and that motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:26 PM. Now we have 4 minutes till our next meeting.
Feel like it'd be bad form, I don't